that Odumegwu Ojukwu resides in the hearts and minds of so many persons.
We come to the keynote for this evening. This young brother, a graduate of the University of Nigeria, after which he worked at all the major newspapers in Nigeria, including The Guardian. And when he moved here to the United States, he pioneered publishing and expanded that once the internet made its landfall. And since then, it has been a flight that today have resulted in him being a regular on CNN, Voice of America, a columnist for some of the most prestigious newspapers in the world. He is sought after all the time on perspectives about Nigeria. And he also was a moderator of the Chido Nwangwu colloquium at Brown University before the passing of that distinguished, Nigerian. So we are delighted to have Dr. Chido Nwangwu as our keynote speaker. Please, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Dr. Chido Nwangwu, publisher, the authoritative link.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, ndị Igbo ndewo, ndị Igbo jere nyaga ndewo. It is my privilege to speak about a man of history, a man of consequence, a leader of manifest destiny, the man who saw tomorrow and the ghost of things to come and engaged it in a fight with very minimal resources. First of all, I want to mention what the 16th century French philosopher Michel Montaigne said about honoring a great person. He said that honor him whom we have made is far from honoring him that made us. To honor him whom we have made is far from honoring him that made us. Michel de Montaigne. Without a doubt, some of us are alive today to talk about history, the future, and the promise of things to come, because we have great men like Odumegwu Ojukwu. Would you give them a round of applause? Some of us are alive today because Ojukwu had the courage to stand up and to be counted where it mattered. I have interviewed Ojukwu 4 times, and I've written at least 15 special reports and commentaries on the man. I know him just a bit. The first time I met him was in 1988 in his residence in the Devasta Lodge in Lagos. I went with the late Dr. Chuba Okadibo and Dr. Chido Nwangwu for a special project we were doing on Odumegwu Ojukwu. And then in 1994, very interesting, he came to the United States. I took him to Magic 102 FM station, which is a music station, oldies and all the hip-hop, R&B hits. I was able to persuade them to give this man 5 minutes of their prime time, the lunch drive-hour period of the station. Unfortunately for them, they agreed to give him 5 minutes. 5 minutes turned out to become 35 minutes on an African-American radio station. Ambakishe Jabiri, the late Ambakishe Jabiri is his African name. They were able to put him on. Because of Ojukwu's kinetic mind, the lucidity of his thoughts, they were able to change the format of the music station for 35 minutes, where he told them everything from African American history to the strivings against slavery to the connectivity of the Caribbean in Jamaica, St. Martinique, Barbados, and other places where there are actual histories and physical presence of the Igbo nation and Igbo people. The phones were lit. That is speaking about the man of history. In 2000, Ojukwu and my ordinary self are godfathers to the same child. You can imagine the disparity. The ordinary me, with a former head of state, being a godfather to one child. We came to this ceremony, and they brought a plate of kola nuts. Ojukwu took all the kola nuts except one kola nut. And everybody was looking at him like, why did you have to take all the kola nuts? He said, I know what you people are thinking. You're wondering, why did I take all the kola nuts and left only one for me? He shook his head and said one word. Nabu Dike. The Yama we came back is Dike, is warrior. In fact, he's a man of history, and he lived as a warrior. In terms of my reading of him as a man of manifest destiny, you can imagine how Odumegwu Ojukwu has throughout his life been at critical junctures of the history of Nigeria. But the most important thing is that he had the courage to stand up and to be counted. When Odumegwu Ojukwu died, we had a special edition of Class magazine, USAfrica Class magazine. And there were pictures of starving Biafran kids in the magazine. My son, Chido Nwangwu II, saw the magazine and asked, Daddy, why are these kids looking like this? And why are you always talking about Ojukwu, Ojukwu, Ojukwu? I went to YouTube and showed him even more challenging stories, which is why it is good to see a lot of young Igbo kids here. As it is said, if you do not know where the rain started pelting on you, you will not know when the rain will stop. If we forget history, it repeats itself. Ojukwu saw history. One of the major visionary realities and experiences of Odumegwu Ojukwu is the fact that he saw radical fundamentalism before most persons in Nigeria saw it. He had the courage to stand up to fight it. Before Rwanda, like I wrote in an essay on Ojukwu, Odumegwu Ojukwu fought against genocidal slaughter of an ethnic persons. Ojukwu was not all about politics. Ojukwu was a traditionalist. Ojukwu understood the contours, the dynamics, the elements, the fine-tuning of the essence of the Nnewi traditions, of the Igbo culture, of the trajectory of the Igbo nation, where we're going as a people, where we've been as a people, and what we should teach our younger generation. Even at that, Ojukwu lived life on his own terms. Ojukwu did not live life with any apologies to no one. Ojukwu is the consummate guy who understood the fact that he had to be on earth once, but that, like I love the phrase that I use, a life of consequence. There are leaders who live lives that are regardless. They live a life without the footprints of greatness. There is nothing to remember about them. They are like candles in the wind. They got blown away by circumstance, by the wind and rain of time, by the tide of everyday experience. But Odumegwu Ojukwu resides in the hearts and minds of so many persons. And I see some of our brothers from across the Niger, Ndi Igbozo, which some are called Igbozo, Anyocha and Yoma. In 1995, I registered as an honorary member of the Anyoma and Anyocha meeting. I'm an Arrow, Ojari Nakwata Olumba. But I did that to send a message of the interconnectedness of who we are. There are those of our brothers, especially in the River State area, in the Ikwere area specifically, who out of the combustion of the post-Civil War Nigeria solemnly say that somebody whose name is Chiemeka, or whose name is Chukwuma, or whose name is Chidozie, is not Igbo, but is a new nationality that is far on our part and only shares neighborliness and transactional interest with the Igbo, just because we lost the war. But we speak of a leader who lived without any apologies. A leader who will not deny you, come hell or high water, come rain, thunder, whatever it might be. I was at the launch of his book because I'm involved at the NIAA. I was taken by my mentor, Dr. Chubal Kadibu. There were 3 of us in the car. The driver, 4 of us, the driver 1, myself seated at the front, Chuba and Odumegwu seated at the back. The man said that today the rest of Nigeria will hear everything important that he's been planning to say, but it's just a tip of the iceberg. And because I'm involved, turned out to be one of the highest selling books written by any Nigerian leader. I am separating my summary presentation in thematic capsules and anecdotes. That way we can see Ojukwu as a regular human being. It is important to know that Ojukwu was not without his many contradictions. He wasn't perfect. Without a doubt, he was not perfect. As a political scientist, I have read Ojukwu's various positions on Nigeria. One is consistent, the other one is also consistent. The first is that he's a federalist who believes in the oneness of Nigeria, in the collaborative union of the federative aspects and units of Nigeria. Then the contradiction arose when, due to war, due to the killings of his people, he had to become an ethnic nationalist. But Ojukwu said in an interview that I had with him that I loved Nigeria so much that Nigeria kept pushing him away. And the other thing he said, that we had a choice, quote, to resist and survive or become slaves in our own country, which is the rationale for Biafra. A contradiction of Odumegwu Ojukwu could also be found when he returned to Nigeria. The very progressive Odumegwu Ojukwu, who belonged or who should belong more to a political party of the old persuasion of progressivism, had to pitch his tent with the new feudal structure movement known as the NPA. The contradiction also emerged when Odumegwu Ojukwu, as an icon of the resolute Igbo identity to survive against all odds, did not join the NPP. In an interview, I had him specifically say that his joining the NPP would have meant, quote, the gathering of the clans, of the Igbo clan. Those were his exact words. The contradiction then came up later when it became necessary in terms of the geopolitics of the country. He had to found the ABGA political movement as a way of returning again from federalist interest, rather than join the PDP and the other emanations that are federalist. He had to come back to create, if you will, an Igbo interest political organization. The other challenge with our great leader, Odumegwu Ojukwu, regarded the Biafra War, the discretions and the decisions that were made in the war. There are those who felt that he could have made more deals, given more concessions in oil, done more flexibility in order to extend the interest of Biafra. There are those who insist that without Ojukwu standing up and leading the fight up until he did, that more Igbos would have been killed in Nigeria, and others said that more Igbos were killed in fact because the struggle took a longer time. On balance, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I will plead to the fact that I am someone who admires Odumegwu Ojukwu very strongly. I have written in laudatory terms of a man that embodies the muscularity, the boldness, the greatness that is possible in Africa and among African leaders. I speak about a man whose dedication to his people made him say, in part I'll quote, that he chose priestly poverty over the wealth and privileges that he was born into in order to serve his people. If we need to look back a little into the 1920s and the 30s, Odumegwu Ojukwu's father, Sir Louis Odumegwu Ojukwu himself, financed with Green Mbadiwe, K. Mbadiwe's older relation, the politics and the agitations of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe and of the NCNC But at the time, it was a society where there was the division of labor. It is not a situation whereby if suddenly you landed on money, then you suddenly think that you have to become the leader of the community all at the same time. We had a society where we knew every person's capacity and specialization. And why that is very important is that Odumegwu Ojukwu, leading Biafra and Biafrans and other persons of southeastern Nigeria, was able to mobilize and catalyze the intellectual capacities of the region, where Wulibwe and other creative things, where coconut oil and things like that were used to move aircrafts and to move engines. And to that, and for many other reasons, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, would you please help me in giving a standing ovation to the great man who passed, that will prepare. Please, a round of applause.